All right, Justin again with ABR in Nashville, Tennessee. This week we had Mr. Devin Stoutenbordo down from OH.
I.O.
All right, yeah. So Devin is a 40-something-year-old man from Ohio, like I said. He's a high school varsity coach where he coaches track, basketball, and soccer. And so he's been very active on a prosthesis. He's been 27 years on a prosthesis since his traumatic amputation. And he's had this current setup probably about, the current socket, how's this socket?
That's probably 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, so he's been successful on this current system about 4 or 5 years. So Devin came to us in this current prosthesis. He currently has a pin locking suspension. I believe this is a Oster Veriflex foot. And he has a custom Ohio Willowwood locking liner. And so because Devin has ran 5Ks on this, he does his daily job, which involves, running around, being outside, doing high activity stuff. And he really hasn't had any issues besides being limited to be as active as he wants to be, and also be able to participate with some of the athletes on the training drills that he's doing. And also he'd like to be more engaged in running activities with his family and his wife, to be more engaged in all that. So he reached out to ABR to see if we can help him out to become more active and increase his comfort and in his current prosthesis to allow him to sustain longer runs and longer activity. So that's why Devin came down here. Like I said, he's been very successful in his custom liner, which is a hybrid TPE gel with this select fabric. Because we do fit liners a little bit tighter than most places that we have observed, I did duplicate his current custom liner, but I did a 3% reduction all the way down just to get a tighter fit. A tighter fit will stabilize his tissue, decrease sweat, and just give a more intimate fit of his residual limb inside of the socket. I added 3 millimeters of gel to the distal end of this liner just because we do expect him to increase his high impact activities. Also with running, we do expect more stress on the distal end of the residual limb, and in a pin lock, there is more force exerted on the distal end, so I wanted to give him a little more cushion to prevent any issues that might occur. And Devin's presentation is very atypical. I guess it's pretty normal for a traumatic amputation, but his fibula bone ends here, and his tibia is right here. So you can see the fibula is longer than the tibia, which is never ideal in a prosthesis. So having a custom liner option with more gel distally designed to his residual limb shape has been a successful outcome for him. And we, instead of reinventing the wheel, we duplicated what he had, just a little tighter liner, tighter socket, different foot, and different materials. And so whenever Devin came down here, we had a plan A and a plan B, and worst case scenario, plan C. So I was prepared to change up the wheel, but like I said, he's been successful. Really no issues besides some irritation and some sweat things, so I wanted to keep it simple just to improve what he has to get him more of a higher activity prosthesis. So like I said, a liner that's been reduced 3%. It's a custom liner of 3 millimeters of gel down there. We also introduced the use of a Swift Wick sock. We find that this is kind of like adding a 2-ply, but more importantly, in this scar line here, he was getting a lot of red irritation down here, which is pretty normal of invaginations like this. So this sweat sock will help out with the perspiration and also help out with this irritation that he gets around the scar line, and also help with a snugger fit. He's found that maybe for running, the sweat sock will be beneficial for him just because you do shrink up faster and you sweat more. For right now, he's still playing around with whether he likes the sweat sock in his walking leg or not. So let's just have you put this sweat sock on and your liner on. So this is what Devin came from. This is a hard socket with flexible inner. This is a different manufacturer's lock. And I guess I talked about the foot and the components on here. So Devin also has about a 12-degree flexing contracture. He has some hardware in his knee, and I believe it to be a rigid contracture because it's been there for so long, and the hardware in his knee. So he does have some offset built into his current prosthesis in the sagittal plane, and he has some offset built in the coronal plane. So what we found is, yes, his flexion contracture is present, and we did accommodate it in his current prosthesis with this anterior offset and accommodating his flexion angle in the socket. What I did find is I did not have to have a need to have a lateral offset to accommodate for his hip adductor weakness. We were able to raise up the trim lines to give him some more knee stability around his condyles and his proximal femoral condyles, as well as educating him how to recruit his muscles to prevent having to have offsets and other things which kind of hides weakness, and his weakness was definitely found when he got on something stringier. But we're educating him on how to manage that and exercises every day to get stronger. And he's been able to improve his running time from I think about a 17-minute mile to now what is it?
13:40.
So in about 4 days, he's shaved that much time off of his mile so far. So he has his sweat sock on and the liner. Do you think you'll be able to fit in here with that sweat sock?
I bet not.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take that off real quick. So again, he has this anterior offset to get his weight line over the 33% of the foot. Without it, he'll just be falling over the front of it. So that is accommodated into the socket. This is a vertical shank foot. And so his first day here, all I did is I put this foot on his current prosthesis. And when you were here that first day and I bolted this foot on this socket and you were walking around and going up the stairs, what are some things you noticed by just changing the foot out?
Well, I had a ton more rollover. I was able to do a heel to toe walk, which I wasn't able to do before. I was able to go upstairs, right foot, left, and before I would have to go up right, bring my left, up right, bring my left. So I was able to get that back, which I hadn't had in a long time. And then I noticed that my stride just became natural. I've got my hip exercises to get better at my strength there, but I noticed that my stride appeared to be a little bit back to where it was when I was an athlete back in the early 90s.
So this is his current walking setup, and probably his sports setup for all of his coaching needs. We were going to try to transition him from just having a socket that he can turn 2 screws and put a blade on, Loctite, torque down for different activities. Due to the uniqueness of his alignment and for user error, we went ahead and provided him with a running socket and a walking socket. We were able to get rid of the flexible inner on the running socket primarily because it's heavier, and also a blade will absorb more forces on his residual limb. And because of his flexion contraction, his knee stays in a bent position. So I wanted to give him a softer plastic up around his knee for everyday walking, because the foot does a good job at absorbing a lot of the forces from the ground, but not as good as a blade does. So no flexible inner on the blade for weight, and the blade hides a lot of the forces, which will decrease pain and discomfort on his residual limb. So you might notice that these trim lines are a lot higher than his current trim lines. And so we did consider putting a sleeve on this just for added knee stability, but we want to educate him to strengthen his gluteus medius, stretch out his hips, use his quadriceps, and we'll give him a little bit higher trim lines for that extra knee stability. And you'll notice on here I don't have any lateral or medial insets or offsets for any coronal plane, but I do have the anterior offset with the flexion on there. So Devin's been playing around with this blade for about a week now. We had one blade picked out for him for his weight category. We found that might be a little too much to control for right now. So he's on a blade that is a category down from him. It's just a softer blade. A softer blade will translate less force up, and so it won't require his muscles to control it as much. So we're going to send him home in this blade, and once he starts really getting on it and he feels like he has outperformed this blade, he's going to mail it back to us. We're going to bolt the blade on that is appropriate for his weight category once he gets stronger to control that. And so that's a goal that he has and that we have for him as well. So this current prosthesis, we weighed it without the shoe. It was about 4.5 pounds. And then this current prosthesis, we were able to cut the weight by about 1.5 pounds. So just by doing the same setup, pin lock, same components, a different foot, same liner and different materials, we're able to shave some weight off. And so obviously as he's strengthening his muscles and becoming more active, having a lighter weight prosthesis will prevent his muscles from fatiguing and he can go a longer duration. So we're always trying to cut the weight of the prosthesis and also educate them how to control their muscles more. So this is his walking setup. You saw how he clips in there, so I'm going to have you pop that off real quick, sir. And then you're going to put this on, and then you'll watch how he just clicks in there. And so he's already found that for running he might need to have like a 1-ply or 2-ply sock on this, which is a good thing because you will shrink up, and so we set him up with those socks to manage that volume too. But more importantly is he wanted to be more active and have some equipment to do more things, and so far I think we've achieved that, and we're looking forward to seeing what Devin does when he goes back home to Ohio. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Stoughton-Bloro, the longest last name in history?
No, this has been such a rewarding experience to come down and work with the people that I've worked with. I probably have worked with Justin and Josh and Aaron. I went on a run with
Alan.
And I probably have spent 40 hours with them, and no complaining. They've been very gracious. It's just been such a rewarding experience. I never thought I'd really run again. And then when my wife met one of the AVR people from back where I'm from, Britt McNitch, it got me thinking, well, maybe I can do this. So then I trained enough to be able to run the 5K on the primitive leg, which is what we call it. And I went through the application process, and it was awesome. Then I came down here, and it was way better than I ever expected. It's just been unbelievable.
All right. So Devin's got on his blade now, and he's going to do a quick little jogging demonstration to show you his progress so far. All right, so we're going to open up this door and let him go loose a little bit.
Run for it. Higher, man. Like over exaggerated for the first, 150 times you do it.